Hello there. My name's Mark, and this is episode 62 of the Holocron Chronicles. I'm joined, as always, by my very special guest. Jeez, my very special co-pilot,
Hold
the
on
best
now.
guy, the best I'm like skipping
Demoted.
you, Charlie. I'm going straight to the guest. This is Charlie. How you doing tonight?
I'm all good. I love it. We're recording a little early, so I won't be like, oh, glad I brought my coffee. But yeah, we because of the person who's actually our special guest, who is from a land far, far away. That's why we're breaking out and recording a little earlier time for you. So yeah, no, I'm good. I am good.
Awesome. And yes, we've alluded to a special guest from across the pond, and that is Gareth, aka the Senate.
Hi.
Which I love. You may know him from TikTok, where he's I Am the Senate, or Instagram, The Senate Official. Links are going to be in the show notes if you need to follow him, and please do. Gareth, how you doing tonight?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, it's I mean, you guys say it's early for you. It's really late for me.
It is. Right. We appreciate
if I fall
you
asleep
staying up
in the middle of the podcast, it's fine, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Tonight's episode brought to you by Red Bull and Monster Energy and whatever other energy drinks that you need to stay awake. But we very much appreciate you joining us and appreciate you staying up. This is awesome. Before we get into your story, I do need to thank our patrons. This show and all of the Secret Friends Network is brought to you by our patrons over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, including Best Bud, Jamie Prinky, BFFs, Sean Stella and Henry Nias, Missy Merchant, and Andy Milliken.
Woo!
Thank you all so much. You guys are amazing. You keep us going. And if you haven't checked it out, check out our Patreon. We're doing exclusive shows over there or limited time shows. Whole lot of fun, whole lot of good stuff. If you haven't checked out Friend Force 99, that's all on the free feed. That started out as an exclusive to Patreon first and stayed there for a little bit before we put it out for everyone. So that's that. Also subscribe on YouTube and all that fun stuff. But I want to learn about Gareth while we're doing that. Tell us a little bit, before we get into your Star Wars origin, how did you start with Star Wars content creation? And tell us a little bit about what you do.
Do you know what? I mostly make content on TikTok and Instagram. So got into TikTok first, and that was in the middle of the UK lockdown, which we had here. I think it stopped me going crazy, to be honest. I was going stir crazy in my house, stuck inside for a while. So making videos gave me a chance to be outside, and I've sort of continued that. At first, it started out a little bit Star Wars related, but then there was a lot of variety and stuff that I was posting. So as well as that, I went to my Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, that sort of thing, general nerd stuff. And the name came from, it's a very silly thing. I wanted to be able to introduce myself whenever I went anywhere as sort of going, I am the Senate, that sort of thing. I quite
then I threw the Senate at him. I just remember that from Robot Chicken.
But yeah, that's where the name came from. And then I think it was 2022, very early in 2022, that I started sort of thinking about Star Wars content full time. Because we have a convention here, MCM, and that's held in May. So I've got that coming up as well this year. But I wanted to sort of mainline Star Wars content for that. So little skits, using some of the audios that I'd find, and then cosplay came a little bit later after May. I did my first convention as Mandalorian Luke. So I've just kept uploading more and more and more until it's become daily uploads.
The Luke,
daily, wow, that's
the Luke-alorian. I love it. I have to tell you, I do have that jacket, but I have not busted out in a while. My let me see. We're at 4 minutes 42 seconds. My wife and I run one of the biggest Star Trek fan clubs in the world, international fan club.
For Star Trek,
we have chapters in the UK as well. So there's a guy like me who runs a region over there. But we spend all of our time doing events and things like that in Star Trek cosplay. So my Star Wars cosplay include my Old Man Luke, Krennic. Old Man Han, Young Han. If I wear a wig, Krennic, and then I've got Luke in that jacket. They're all kind of in bins in the garage. Yeah, so I don't have much of an occasion to bust them out, but I'd like to. I would very much like to.
Yeah, I mean the this jacket came a little bit later. This was bought specially for Star Wars Celebration this year.
Nice.
I always wanted to do a sort of very niche Luke Skywalker outfit, and I sort of thought, well, I could do something from the comics or something else, and then I thought, well, the yellow jacket is very recognizable, isn't it?
And that's the comics version because it's the V-neck as opposed to the Mandarin flap.
Exactly.
See, cosplayer.
There you go.
Charlie knows his stuff, cosplay stuff, man. It's amazing.
You're gonna forgive me if I
was looking up some.
Oh, by all means, please.
I've been looking up some, like, not even specifically cosplay stuff. I wanted to get some Jedi robes, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll just go like full like Cal Kestis kind of thing and lean into the gingerness. And I was talking to a friend of mine like earlier, and it was like, that stuff is crazy expensive. You guys are dedicated.
Oh
yeah, it's my bank account's in
like if you want to do it right.
Yeah, you're not even talking about what a kit is to get into being a TK to being a stormtrooper. 1,500, $2,000 on up. Yeah. And with the Rebel Legion and the 501st being so thick, certainly here in the US, and I'm sure it is globally, they're very strict. They're strict, and I kind of employ that in my chapter with people who want to work with us and cosplay with us. I'm very strict, because I figured, I learned it from my old man. If you're going to do something, why would you want to do your best? Don't half-ass your way through something. So I don't allow it. And we don't have official rules, but I mean, there's the rule of me. I'm the captain. So
I am the captain.
People tend to listen to me.
Well, I mean,
Gareth, you mentioned. Oh, sorry.
Go on. I was going to say I've got a friend who's I've asked him to 3D print some Mandalorian armor. So that's my next that's my next conquest that I'm going on.
Awesome.
So my bank account's going to be so far in the red, but it's fine.
It's hurting. It's crying. It's going to be crying red tears.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned daily uploads. What goes into like planning that kind of stuff? Because that's a lot of work, for like a minute or 30-second or even 3-minute video. Like it's planning and that kind of stuff, I'm sure. What's your usual process, if you don't mind sharing too much?
No, not at all. So mainly a lot of my time, because I work very much a 9 to 5 job, a lot of my free time is in sort of late afternoons, evenings, and then weekends. So it means that most of the time I'll sort of take the weekend to find the audios, record anything that I can. So if I need to get into cosplay, then that's great. I'll have the time to do that. I mean, this is quite like the full thing is quite an easy thing to get into. So I'll mainly do that at the weekend, and then any sort of out of cosplay stuff I will record in the evenings or on the afternoons when I get back from work. But that means obviously I tend to record outside a lot because the inside of my house is just dark. So it's not great. It's not great for lighting. But so yeah, it gives me a very limited time scale. I used to get quite stressed about the times that I would take to record, and as it gets into winter, obviously I had maybe the space of an hour, so there would be a lot of running in and out in and out of cosplay, like half dressed, kind of pulling on a
it's like you're on the Star Wars version of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, well, it's very much like that.
Yeah,
but it didn't help that. Well, I must be really set in my ways about it. I think once I get into something, I'm tending to roll with it and follow a pattern. So I've started uploading one video in cosplay, one out of cosplay every day. So that means I'm recording about 14 videos a week. Maybe going back and forward in like the odd CapCut template or whatever, something else. So yeah, it can get quite stressful, but the weekends are really good for that.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, same.
I have no social life.
I probably, with our Patreon, I record most Thursday nights, and I record 2 or 3 times on Saturdays and Sundays, usually Sundays. So it's just, that's how the donuts get made. You know what I'm saying? That's how we crank them out.
Pretty much. That's just it.
So you talked about focusing on Star Wars content. I want to know
Yeah.
how you got into Star Wars. So let's talk about your Star Wars origin. How did you find and start to love Star Wars enough to focus on it that much?
Well, it sounds very cliche to say, but I've always kind of been into Star Wars ever since I was really, really little. I remember when I was, oh God, I must have been 3 or 4, probably, like really young. Where my dad showed me the originals, the first ones I ever saw, and they really kind of resonated with me. And then I was sort of growing up in the very early 2000s. So it was nice because then I got the chance to be a prequels child, and I could go back and watch it all with the benefit of hindsight and sort of know what happens in the originals and could understand it all. I remember the Phantom Menace was a little bit too early for me to see, but then as the rest of them came out, I was sort of when they came out on DVD, I was shown them at home. And then when I was, I think, growing up, sort of moving on from that, I used to get into lightsabers. I used to have one of the telescopic blades that you would sort of flick.
The ones that we all started with.
Oh, the plastic one. I played those with my kids when they were growing up. Just flick.
I was probably way too attached to mine. I think I was quite possessive. You can't have my lightsaber.
Yeah.
But
I would fight you for it.
It was only the strongest shall have the light. No,
right.
But it would always be. I'd always like make believe it on the playground, as a child, and then growing up, I would sort of make my own stories and my own characters, and come up with new ways to engage with that world. So now, being an adult and having access to all the facilities basically through that, it's really helpful, and it gives me a lot of inspiration for creating content.
That's one thing when you said like creating your own character. That's one thing I really liked growing up and reading. So before like the sequels, it was like, the Young Jedi Academy books and that kind of stuff. And Luke had all these students, and it focused on a certain set, like the twins and whatever. But I always liked being able to imagine just myself being one of the students at Luke's Academy, and like seeing the twins and seeing, Tenel Ka and whatever. But like, I'm kind of like off to the side, like that could be me. And whether I had that extending lightsaber or like a stick that I'd pretend or whatever, like that was kind of it. Like we're at Luke's Jedi Academy, and I kind of missed that, right?
It was before you really got to find out how all that turned out.
Right. Like the sequels for me, like I like the sequels, but there's part of me that kind of like was so disheartened when it was like, oh, the Jedi are dismantled, nothing's left.
Yeah. It's like
my childhood shattered.
Yes.
I'm no longer a student at Luke's Academy because
I used to have a friend who we would make believe play Star Wars on together, and I would make the lightsaber sounds, and he would sing the theme song as we were pretending to duel. Those memes that was sort of how it looks, how it feels. It was very much like that. Used to think we were Anakin and Obi-Wan. As one of us going da, 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 da.
I asked my HomePods today I have 3 HomePods throughout the house, and I asked all 3 of them to play Duel of the Fates while my 3-year-old and I had a lightsaber battle with pieces of a Hot Wheels track, even though there's several sabers around the house. He handed me one and was like, lightsabers, and started swinging it. And he had this like giant piece like Darth Maul, and I was just like, okay, let's Duel of the Fates this kid. God. So
that Hot Wheels track thing did not end well for Bart and Lisa Simpson. That was a Bart and Simpson like, oh no, it smacked him. I think Lisa smacked him and said, no joints.
They can whip, man. They can whip. But
I honestly pity my future wife, to be honest, because God forbid I ever have kids and I'll just lightsaber dueling all over the place.
She was sitting on the couch just like shaking her head, but I was thinking of exactly what you said, of like, you used to have to, one of us would have to do the sound effects and the other would have to sing the songs to get into it. So like, even as Duel of the Fates is playing in every room in the house, I'm still going like like just straight back to that time. It was great. Do you have a favorite Star Wars movie, show? Like what is Star Wars to you?
I would say in terms of like having a favorite, I think, oh God, that's a really difficult question. I think it's probably a tie. I can't decide. I go sort of flip back between moods. Sorry. I would say a tie between Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith. I'd say Return of the Jedi probably is my comfort movie, and it's kind of the one that makes you feel like warm and fuzzy inside, kind of. But then I really love the storytelling, and obviously with Revenge of the Sith, it's a classic, and you've got
it's not warm and fuzzy
coming up. No, it's definitely not that. But yeah, I think it's one of those two, and I think Star Wars really just encapsulates kind of all those feelings in one. You can feel in the space of one movie, you can feel happy, excited, upset, disappointed, worried. It can give you all those feelings, and I think that's really special.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Nice. I love it.
Absolutely. Favorite character?
Is it a basic answer to say Luke Skywalker?
No, not at all.
There are no wrong answers except for the answers that are wrong.
That's true.
Think about
it. Yeah, I would say I'd have to say Luke Skywalker. I mean, he's my hero growing up. I think wasn't he every
Me too.
5-year-old kid's 5-year-old kid's favorite movie hero? He was one of the first ones that I saw, and I remember I used to pretend to be him as well. And green is my lightsaber color, so it all lined up perfectly. But
absolutely,
when I saw Return of the Jedi, something just clicked.
Yep. Same.
The big click. Totally.
Same.
Nice.
When he flips up and grabs that green lightsaber, I was like a lifelong fan instantly. Yes. That was it for me. That is the moment.
That's the moment I decided to start cosplaying, I think.
that finely orchestrated plan that looked like there's no way it could have worked out.
No. Exactly. I think with your favorite characters and the cosplay that I've seen you do and everything else, I think I know what you're going to say for this one, but I have to ask, if you woke up tomorrow with force powers, you think you'd lean more to the light side or dark side?
To be honest, I think you're right. I would say light side. I think I've always liked the Jedi more than the Sith, to be honest. But maybe that's just growing up with the prequels. You would kind of only saw maybe 4 or 5 like maximum dark side users. And I think probably a lot of my favorite characters as well were on the light side of the Force. So Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, Leia, and then Anakin a bit. And then obviously you had the Clone Wars with new characters like Ahsoka. So I think I really sort of got interested in the light side more with that and more sort of engaged with the Jedi. Plus, I just don't think red suits me as a lightsaber color, to be honest. Wouldn't work.
I was curious for a second. So the Kylo Ren helmet in the background for anyone not watching the video, if anyone's listening to the audio, there's mostly light side stuff, and then that Kylo Ren just kind of staring at me.
And
so
he's got his own table there, but Thrawn's lurking.
He does.
Lurking. He's lurking on the cover of that book behind him.
You mentioned green as your lightsaber color of choice, so I don't have to ask that one, but I do have to ask if you have a favorite lightsaber design. Ooh. And this can be in canon. This can be like one of my favorites. I have kind of 2 favorites, and that's Gunji's wooden lightsaber and Tenel Ka's lightsaber from Legends, which was a Rancor tooth, which is I just always love that design. So any lightsaber design that sticks out to you?
I mean, Brylac Wood is top tier, isn't it, as a lightsaber design? God. Do you know what? Weirdly, I would say like I liked narrow emitters a bit more. So I would like Obi-Wan's lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber. I think it's probably like less. If you were really dueling with it, it's probably a bit less practical than the sort of chunky ones, or right. Kylo Ren's, which is quite sort of. I mean, it's quite thick and very rounded, isn't it? But I like the sort of finesse that it kind of brings to it. It makes when you think of what Obi-Wan said in A New Hope, where he's like an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. I thought it was a bit more like a saber rather than a sword. And,
absolutely.
I think I prefer sort of narrow designs. So Luke and Obi-Wan,
like
definitely.
Yeah, I do like that elegance that that those bring, and that we've seen in some of the High Republic stuff with more flourishes on it, that they have kind of like what you alluded to, more Saber-esque kind of guards. You see these gold inlay, the inlays and that kind of thing, and non lightsaber cross guards, just there for flourish and design. I love that kind of the kind of stuff that's popping up from the High Republic. I really like that vibe.
I think as we get more into the High Republic as well, I think that'll come. More of that will come, and especially I think there's a movie coming out at some point. I don't know when. It was announced at Star Wars Celebration, I think, but maybe we'll see something like that then.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's when the Acolyte's taking place, so we're going to see that really soon.
Right. True.
Stuff popping up, and that's Young Jedi Adventures, kind of the tail end of the High Republic. But that's we see kind of a young-ish Yoda training some younglings, and that's more of a kid-focused show. But I've been enjoying it so far with my little guy. So see how that goes. Favorite affiliation? This can be Jedi, bounty hunters, Sith, rebels, space pirates. Who do you want to hang out with if you could just visit Star Wars for a day?
Oh, do you know what? Whilst I like pre-Empire Jedi, I actually really like the idea of Jedi during the Rebels or New Republic and kind of Resistance era. So like post Rise of Skywalker, or post, for example, Revenge of the Sith. So I think when it comes to Jedi that sort of follow maybe a more non-traditional route, a bit like Luke did. So carrying a blaster, not dressing in proper robes. I remember his Return of the Jedi outfit was certainly very different to what I had sort of seen Obi-Wan Kenobi wear growing up whilst watching A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. And I kind of like the fact that they only, like, when before the Empire, I would say the Jedi were kind of almost muddled by a lot of different commitments that they had to follow, and they had to sort of embrace a kind of larger view when it came to like the Clone Wars and serving as generals and that sort of thing. But I like when sort of newer Jedi, more modern Jedi, follow just the core principles of Jedi teaching, and I kind of like that the element of that. And I think you can still see it in Jedi like Quinlan Vos, for example, who's kind of follow it a bit more loosely and kind of bend the rules a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Quinlan Vos and big vibes from Cal Kestis, like that. Doesn't do the robes and that kind of stuff. In the new game, he gets a blaster, and definitely is known as a Jedi, and say proudly wears that, like, I'm a Jedi, and everyone says like, oh, the Jedi's coming, but very different. He's not that cloaked and reserved. He's just like, I'm gonna mess you up.
He's a Jedi of his, probably a Jedi of his time. Yeah, because
Jedi warrior.
He lived in a very bad time. So you're product of the environment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Without too many spoilers or anything, there is a name drop of the path kind of thing in the new game, and I was just waiting for like a Quinlan Vos kind of name drop or something like that, but we didn't get anything so far that I've seen. But anyway, there's
maybe.
Maybe I'm not finished the game, so I don't know. I will, but where I am so far, there hasn't been a name drop. Last question that I have for you.
All right.
This is a newer question. Star Wars, basically, overall, you mentioned it, there can be up and downs and whatever, but for the most part, there's a lot of suffering, a lot of tragedy, a lot of killer ponchos and laser swords.
So many.
There can be some fun.
Belts and boots.
If you were in the Star Wars universe, what hilarious way do you think you'd die?
I like that. Do you know what? I don't know about hilarious way to die. I always thought that like quite a cool way to go would be sort of, looking up at the Death Star in like a final act of triumph after evacuating a planet, kind of like a last stand sort of thing. That's probably like a cool way to go. As for hilarious, I don't know. I feel like maybe I think getting eaten by a Rancor is probably quite high on
that's Mark's. That's Mark's, you bet. It's a lot less salacious than the one that I picked. So,
well, I was gonna say my other one would have been probably I'd just get something mundane like hit by a land speeder or something. Like I just wouldn't look both ways before crossing the Tatooine street.
See,
jaywalking, exactly.
I want to add some comedy to your first choice, and that's when you finally finish paying off your student loans or some giant debt that you've had, and you look up and the Death Star lasers coming down towards your planet. And that's your sad, tragic, but kind of hilarious way to die. Of like,
feel like you've wasted your life.
Scot-free.
Or worse yet, the rebels just blew up that Death Star, and then unlike in Return of the Jedi, where you think all the debris would fall down on the Endor moon, you just get hit by a chunk of debris that's like 50 kilometers long. Just
credits didn't do fine, as it turned out.
Yes, exactly.
For sure. So we got a lot of content dropped May the 4th. Yeah. We said we had visions and a bunch of different stuff, and we kind of have we do have a plan. Charlie and I are still working on a plan to watch Vision Season 2, to finish Young Jedi Adventures, to finish up Jedi Survivor. There's a lot of stuff that we have to get to, and that's why we're kind of taking this week just to talk about Return of the Jedi and get Gareth on, because you guys both saw it. But before we get to Return of the Jedi, Charlie, one of the things that's been rumored or kind of announced-ish during the May 4th news drop was a new HasLab project.
Well, I will, and I'll quantify this by saying that this is from a website called Toy Farce, which is potentially a little bit satirical. So I'll pepper this in with a little bit of reservedness. But I picked it because I was, Mark and I were talking about the flow of the show today, getting this organized, and it was at lunchtime. And my wife April and I both work from home, except for when I'm on the road. But she's here every day, so when I'm here, we sit and we have lunch together. So I'm skimming through Jedi Insider and Star Wars Newsnet and all the regular place that I find Star Wars news. And there's a blurb from, I think this was from today, from Toy Farce being sorted as the site saying, could the next Star Wars Vintage Collection HasLab be the Ewok Village? And it was a chuckle because I'll tell April's story by telling my own story first. When I was 6 years old, this was back in the 80s, I was the kid who wouldn't quit sucking his thumb. Like, that was my thing, right? So my mom, my single mom, was just my mom, my brother, and I. She said, look, we got to get this done. So we instituted into a bribe scenario. She said, quit sucking your thumb by X date or whatever it is the terms of the negotiation were, and I will purchase for you the golden goose of toys that you want. Masters of the Universe, He-Man's Castle Grayskull. And I was like, I will do it. And I was determined. The period of time passed by, and the day came that it was time to go to Toys R Us, which is something that still exists in Canada, but we don't have it in the United States anymore. We went to the one in Roseville, Michigan. I'm from Metro Detroit. That was nearby my home in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And we went there and ran through the aisle and got to the place where it was supposed to be on the shelf, and it was gone. But back in the day, they would have, probably for higher ticket items, they have literally a little ticket there that you could tear loose and fill out a rain check. So you fill out a rain check and you pay X, a month, every month. And at the end of when you're done paying for it, you get the item. So the 6-year-old is funny. I just told this story again to my comic shop guy on Free Comic Book Day just a couple days ago, because he had one in the store, and April and I stood and stared at it, and I said, I don't know, because of course when it was offered, a rain check was offered to me, I said no, and took some other items of equal or lesser value, as they say in the sweepstakes game. So that's I've never owned a Castle Grayskull. There is one at my comic shop in Tardy's in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I live. But for my wife, the Ewok Village was that. What was that now? I'm sorry.
I said go buy it. You need to buy it.
Oh my goodness, $100.
I
might do it. And it's complete, except it's missing some kind of cardboard insert. There was this Post-it note stuck to it, so I just might do that. And I should have. He was doing 20% off that day. I bought a G.I. Joe action figure that went on my shelf instead. So, because I have Gareth, you can't see it, but if I was to flip my camera around, I have 6 big stacker sections of action figures: Star Wars, Marvel, Indiana Jones, G.I. Joe, Star Trek. So you'll just have to keep watching our shows, because I often will turn the camera if I record at night. I'll turn the camera, and because I have 2 glass block windows, I don't want it to flood out, but you'll see it all. But I'll show you.
Brilliant. Sure.
But at any rate, so for my wife April, her older brother had the Ewok Village, and April liked to play with it. But much like younger sibling, he was like, "This is mine. Get lost. You're a girl. You can't play with Star Wars." Again, this was in the early '80s. My wife and I are the same age. So that became her Great White Buffalo, or Castle Grayskull. So I showed her this, and she was like, "Really?" I said, "This." We've purchased 2 HasLabs before. We did not buy the Katana, which was the Jabba's sail barge. So I have 2 friends that did. But I did purchase the Sky Striker, which is the G.I. Joe, and I'm going to tilt you slightly, and you can see it there in the corner. All right. Wow. And then I purchased, and I want to get this right back in the right, because I want you to be able to appreciate my Return of the Jedi poster as I'm talking. And we purchased the G.I. Joe Cobra Hiss Tank, which is more to the scale of their 6-inch figures, much like the Star Wars Black Series, that will apparently come this fall. So if this one comes out, I told her, I said, if this ends up being real, which I don't know if it ends up being real, I said, it will be yours. It can go in your office. Oh, yeah. I won't, and I won't interfere, and perhaps over time I'll help you populate it with figures and stuff. So I really hope. HasLabs are fun, and Todd and I have talked about this over on SFU Prime. HasLab, which is crowdfunded special projects from Hasbro, and Hasbro has long been the maker of the Star Wars action figures in both the 3 3/4 and the 6-inch scale. 6-inch scale is the Black Series for the last decade. They've done that one to varying degrees of success. But they've done a few projects that have been successful, Star Wars related, since HasLab's been going on. There was the Katana, Jabba sail barge, as I mentioned, and then there was the Rancor, which was a massive Rancor-sized dump of a project that it didn't get funded because it was very lackluster. They brought it out, they kind of dragged their heels. Their unlocks were pretty pathetic.
Cardboard, wasn't it for a lot, like in cardboard and just like re-releases?
Well, the first unlocks were like a skull, and like a skull of something that didn't make any sense for it to go with a Rancor. I'd have to look it up. And then the unlocks were
skull.
Yeah, it was Tauntaun, which would absolutely not appear in the Rancor's pit. That alone annoyed the shit out of me. I was never going to buy it, but I was very happy to see it fail, because it was a mediocre effort. I mean, yeah, you're right. And then the figures that were part of the other unlocks were just repacks, which is very, very common with Star Wars figures. So I'm not going to say that this wouldn't also contain repacks, but it's kind of funny if you look at this link that I posted. They have, their potential unlocks, as they said, army build for a bigger force. They stuck a bunch of them together, which I think would be amazing. And one of their unlock figures was Return of the Jedi, Endor Han Solo, which would be awesome. Yeah. A C-3PO to sit in the throne, an Ewok catapult, and the Ewok combat glider. So they took photos of things that were part of the classic series and then the vintage series as well. So this is awesome. So Hasbro, if you're listening to our show, which you don't, but maybe you do, or maybe our friend Patrick, who works for Hasbro, who's been on SFU Prime, and hopefully will come back and be doing Indiana Jones with us when that comes out next month. I'm in, so I will totally buy it. I don't think I'll buy 5 of them so that I can have some kind of crazy Ewok forest, but the village will definitely go. Will definitely go in my wife's office, and it will photograph. So these are fun. Mark or Gareth, have you guys ever dabbled in any kind of crowdfunded or screw that, but just any large, like, super expensive collectible? You got anything on your shelves?
I don't really know about super expensive collectibles, really. It's not really my area.
I understand.
I was thinking about starting to kind of collect more Black Series figures. I think I've got a couple lurking upstairs, but
I do. I don't think I can turn. If I turn it all the way around, you'll see my laptop. I don't know if. Oh wait, look at this. It's no, it turned my other one off. Hold on.
Oh no.
No, yeah. But anyway, no, I'd love to show you. There we go. No, as I turned off my monitor because the button pushed up against the arm. So But yes, I'd love to. Let's see if I take this off, I can show you without breaking it. Let's see here. There you
Oh
go.
wow!
More
Wow!
figures, more. So yeah, there you go. There's the Star Wars over there.
Oh, that's incredible.
Up and down. Yeah, you know what? I've always said, it's a hobby I've had for about a decade, and it is cheaper than smoking crack.
It's probably cheaper. It's probably cheaper than cosplaying, to be honest.
Yes, it's but not if you sit down and do the math. Then it's not cheaper than anything. It's ridiculous. But you know what? It keeps me sane. It keeps me sane. So, but yeah, that's the only thing. And again, we're looking to bring you more content as the week goes on, because we don't have new shows to talk about, because we won't have anything until we get to past the various animated things we're talking about. We won't have anything until we get to August. So Mark and I are going to have to knock heads together and figure out if we're going to maybe do some deep dives, maybe give you a little Ahsoka run up, where we come up with some targeted stuff. And I don't know, we'll see. You'll just have to keep tuning in, faithful listeners / viewers / listeners.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, the only recent stuff I've been collecting is the Star Wars Vintage series, or no, sorry, the Star Wars Retro series, not the Vintage series.
Oh, yes, the retro ones.
Two different. The retro ones look like the toys that my uncles had. I never had those. Like, I had the more. They looked like the Vintage series. The retro ones are like super stiff, look like the ones from the 70s.
Yeah, the
80s,
Kenner ones
like the ones.
Yeah, they don't have any joints. There's no joints in the arms or legs.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're very, very basic. I leave them all in box, and I have most of the Mando and Obi-Wan collection, and the Armorer should be arriving tomorrow or Wednesday.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to getting her and adding her to my collection.
Awesome.
And that's a bit of like expensive stuff. I'd say like my Mando helmet and lightsabers would be the most expensive thing. Like, but I don't have like a focused collection. I should be getting a new lightsaber in the next couple of weeks as well. But yeah, that's kind of it. I don't have like expensive toys or figures that I specifically go after. So
right, yeah. For me, it's just what you saw. It's just what adds up.
Yeah, yeah.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
That's okay. I budget for it. It's not bill money. I make money in other ways. So yeah.
Exactly. So we, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to get Gareth on because you were lucky enough, and I'm going to say lucky enough, because this skipped my local theater. I was waiting for the showtimes to drop, and they just never did. So you two lucky sons of guns saw Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary in theaters.
Yeah.
Let's just start off. Gareth, what was the experience like seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters? I'm guessing you didn't see it when it was out in 97.
No, I'm a little bit young for that, unfortunately.
There we go. So what?
I'm still a toddler.
So what was this? What was this experience like for you?
Do you know what? I don't know if I could put it into words. It was amazing. Like, obviously, I hadn't ever seen it in a movie theater at all. Like, it had never been re-released before this. Certainly not in my local area. So I was already really excited going into it, and I wanted to go and see. I took my younger brother of a couple of years with me, which was really nice. We're both big into Star Wars, so we went and had that experience together, which was really cool.
Awesome.
So
great.
I was really excited, actually. I remember it brought back all the memories of watching it as a kid. And the excitement of seeing, the rescue of Han Solo, the first time seeing the Emperor, that was giving me all the chills again. The attack on Endor and the duel between Vader and Luke on the second Death Star, I think must be one of my favorite lightsaber duels across the whole franchise. And all those nerves, excitement, happiness, it all just came back, flooding back in a heartbeat. As soon as the logos came on the screen, zooming out, and I just thought, wow, like I remember the feeling of seeing a Star Wars movie in the cinemas again, and it was worth every penny that I paid. And I just, got chills when, especially when I saw Hayden Christensen back on at the ending scene, because it was the I think it was the special edition.
It was the 2004 DVD cut, because back in 97 that was before the prequels. But yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the same one that you can watch on Disney Plus right now. Like that's the
Right.
edition that it was, because that's something I wanted to ask was
Right. Yeah.
what experience was this?
There is no the original cut of the film does not exist in the eyes of the powers that be. It exists on a thumb drive I have plugged into my 4K Blu-ray player. That's it. Yeah, because when George remade the film, his decree was this is the film now, and then he made his tweaks, this and that. But yeah, I had the same question up top because I was, without it being revealed, you can watch the first long scene of the film, and when they cut to Tatooine, you see R2 and 3PO walk through the desert having their little conversation. When they walk up to the big front gate at Jabba's palace in the original cut, it looked relatively like, oh, it's a big metal door. In the special edition, it's pockmarked with laser blasts. So that's how I knew, okay, what I suspected would, obviously this was going to be the official cut, and that's what it was from that point.
Okay. It makes sense that's the edition that they would show,
right?
In theaters.
Continuity, and it's what's official. So,
I think it's what everyone's used to as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially since that's what's been consistent for the last 25 years. Yeah, exactly. So, well, I first saw the film, unlike the two of y'all, in the theaters in 1983. I was 7, so I was in the second grade, I think. It's usually how that works. And again, I lived in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which is in suburban Metro Detroit. I lived on my street dead ended into the school, so I was I never had the excuse of being late for school. But my mom, who was super mom, single mom working, decided to pull my brother and I out of school on a weekday to go see this movie. And it was one of those where, you can't tell anybody I'm doing this. You got to have a sick day or whatever. And of course, back in the schoolyard the next day, oh my God, we went to see Return of the Jedi on a Tuesday and blah, 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 blah. And naturally, since I was 7 years old, I remember absolutely nothing. I've told the story many times that the first film I ever saw in theaters was 3 years earlier, and it was The Empire Strikes Back. My dad took my brother and I. Yes. Oh, wow. And I have two memories of that experience. Number one, because there wasn't any kind of pre-film entertainment like now they have Nuvi and Maria Menounos up there with her cackling laughter, and then they have a whole bunch of trailers and this different stuff. They instead had no sound, no picture, but an out of focus white picket fence for 30 minutes. And so to keep ourselves entertained, we played rock, paper, scissors. And those are the two memories I have of seeing Empire Strikes Back for the first time. But I've told that story many times. But yeah, it was. I'm sure it was great. It was very exciting. Yeah. But
how was it this time?
It was. This is funny because I had the same conversation with Todd and John right after I saw it. It kind of flashed me back to about 3 or 4 years ago and it was before the 40th anniversary, which would have been in 2021 of The Empire Strikes, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is my favorite film. And I said, and I've seen a handful of movies in a revival, setting, since I've been an adult and I really scrutinize and pay attention to things. I always think if I notice one little weird detail that I don't see watching it hundreds of times on a small screen, I feel like I'm really paying attention. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, it was the fact that the colonel, who was the other Nazi, who at the end of it, they're all standing around the Ark and their faces melt and everything. He's the other guy. He has a big, really super phony scar on his cheek. So there you go. That's something I learned by seeing it at a small theater at our local, art institute. With this one, what I noticed was, it was in the first act of the film, in Jabba's palace, when R2 and 3PO are led down into the droid torture unit, and they're talking to, I think it's EVD 909, I think it's the name of the droid. He's like, he's reading the riot act. There's droid bits everywhere, but I think when you cut back to him speaking in a two-shot, he's speaking to C-3PO, littered around his feet are the trash remains of 4 or 5 different R2 units, one of which looks absolutely like R2, but it's like caked in green slime, and it's just really gross. So yeah, I was like, ooh, that's gotta be tough for R2 if he's like, dude, oh my God, that was I knew Bill, I remember Bill from the Sandcrawler. Well, and what's funny, one thing I've always noticed is when 3PO is being moved out of that room, like the Gamorreans are pushing him, he's like, R2, don't leave me. And then he bumps into that one droid and he doesn't knock him over. That droid was in the Sandcrawler with him. So obviously that droid's, story after the Sandcrawler, somebody else bought him. Then Jabba picked him up and smashed him. And they're like, well, parts is parts. And they just shoved him in a corner. It's a real bummer. So yes, it was kind of the car. It was like Saw in there for droids. You know what I mean? It was merciless. So anyway, that was my big grab from watching it this time.
I think I made a video, maybe about a year ago, saying something along the lines of, if assuming droids think similarly to humans, that scene when they're dragged into the whole workshop must have been absolutely horrifying for them, because they're seeing all these dismembered parts and it must be awful. It's like something out of a horror film.
Right. Here's an arm and a leg, and here's a guy. Yeah. And the guy who's like, he's going to be drawn and quartered, like his arms and his legs. Yeah. As they're talking, the little device is just going, and then it just goes and pulls them apart. It was just like, that was horrible. That's tough stuff. Yeah.
I think I noticed as well, like when I was watching it, it's just similar to what you said. I think on a slightly bigger scale, I noticed, for example, when they were walking in through the gate, through the door, I saw the Boma monk in the background, which I think was added in as well, which is something that I was like weirdly fascinated by. I think just the idea of keeping, I think it's their brain in a jar, maybe. Is that right?
The whole the now non-canonical Tales of Jabba's Palace, which came out in the mid to late 90s, told that I know that John, my other partner, my other college roommate, read that whole thing, was really really well versed in that. And it's while it's non-canonical, it's not Disney canon. There's not you call it head canon because it's not been disproven. It hasn't been like, oh, those Bomar marks are really something else or whatever. Nobody ever talked about them. Then it's it's still canon. There's no reason for it not to be canon. So that was basically the deal.
Confirmed that it was them in, what was that in? Book of Boba Fett, maybe?
Yes, I think it was when they were in the palace, right? Or when they were just outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was like behind the scenes, like they wanted to drop that in because of that, like to make them canon or whatever. But I don't think it was actually name dropped like in the show, but like that was the reasoning for it. Like, let's make sure that these things are seen again.
I mean, that's the same. That's the same way they found a way to make Dash Rendar canon by sticking him in a little, like it was a this or that or whatever. Dash Rendar, Gareth, if you're not at all familiar with Shadows of the Empire, that's an episode, Mark, that we ought to knock out in the next couple of months.
That'd be fun, man.
Yeah. I think we should put that on the docket, even if we don't read the whole book, but if we simply just talk about the experience of it, I think that'd be a good idea.
I have to see if I can get that game again.
Ooh. I know I purchased that book and started to read it. I'm like, oh my God, this was boring, but I still have it on my Kindle, so I could finish it.
I always feel like you can sort of take elements in from the expanded universe and kind of bring them into Disney canon a little bit in your own head, like obviously with headcanons and stuff like that, as long as they don't impact the story at all, like Boma Monk, like whatever else. It's like, I feel like you can have that belief and you can sort of treat that as your own personal canon. Don't make a difference to anybody else.
I read a very interesting theory today on how to bring Starkiller in, and it was specifically through the Ahsoka show and make him essentially an Inquisitor. So very much change the Starkiller we saw in the games, because obviously overpowered, just ridiculous. But take an essence of that character and make them an Inquisitor, because we haven't seen all of the Inquisitors. We haven't seen the extent of these Jedi hunters or Vader's apprentices or his personal kill squad. We've seen that explored here and there. We've seen a few of them highlighted, like in Obi-Wan and throughout like Jedi Fallen Order and whatever. But who's to say one of them wasn't Starkiller? Maybe that was Vader's favorite. And
he's my boy, or his lieutenant, his top dude.
And whatever. Like there's I think there is a possibility there. Like even for an OP video game character who you think is just too ridiculously overpowered to work in anything but a video game. But like people are clamoring for that character to be made canon again. So
I remember when Jedi Survivor, the trailer first came out, and you saw the character with the red lightsaber stepping out of the fog. I read something that thought, oh wow, it's Starkiller, and I wasn't sure because I assumed that he was going to be a little bit too overpowered to bring him into canon in that format. But I think it's it's good to be left open to maybe doing that in a different way. Like, I think that's quite a good idea, to be honest. Because so many people like The Force Unleashed and 1 and 2.
Oh, big time. Huge hit. Absolutely. Huge hit back in the day, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Kind of starting to wrap things up here. I think, Gareth, you mentioned that Return of the Jedi is one of your top 2 favorites. Pretty fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. I really, I think I just really enjoy both Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith together.
Charlie, recap for new listeners.
I would even say like a top 5. Well, Empire has always been my number 1. I run in kind of a logjam putting Rogue One in episode 4 in kind of a quasi shared film, like maybe a tie for 2 and 3. And then Jedi would be right after that, because I really do feel that Rogue One is, it's analogous to being part of the trilogy. It's, it's episode, 3.99. Yeah, exactly. 3.99999. Yeah. So it was, so I would say, but yeah, Jedi it's a classic beyond. It did bring a trilogy to a very definitive end, and it's a place that they really could have left it if it hadn't become everything that it's become since. I mean, there's always, in a lot of ways, more story to tell. There are things out there that come to a very definitive end. Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica came to a very definitive end. If I keep plugging on it, someday Mark will watch it. Mark, it's very Canadian. They shot all of it in BC. So I'm just saying, national pride, come back at me with that. That's all I'm saying.
I think I'm closer to Gareth than I am to BC, but all right.
You probably are, actually. Yeah.
I think I could stand on the coast and kind of wave towards your direction.
It's funny you say about your top 5. I don't know what mine would be. I would say if I'm like having to whittle it down completely, I would say Revenge of the Sith, number 1. Jedi number 2, Empire number 3. Ooh, really enjoy like Rogue One number 4 maybe, and I like The Force Awakens. I think I've adjusted my choice slightly.
That's definitely in my top 5, if not top 3, dude. Like,
and again, we have
I really enjoyed it.
11 films to choose from, because you count the 2, so the solo story and then Rogue One. So and then if they ever decide to make another film.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I trust that they're making that Rey sequel for sure.
They would really be stepping out on a ledge if they were like yoink. If they turned that into a gotcha, I think it'd be a bad choice.
And Gareth, I named my kid Finn, so if I don't put Force Awakens somewhere high on my list, like that's pretty telling.
Yeah, right.
There you
go. For me, like Jedi's got to be number 1, I think, for me as well. Awesome. I did see it in theaters. I missed out this time. I did see it when it was re-released in 1997. I was 13 at the time.
Yeah.
And was just really like, that was cementing my love of Star Wars. Like they were getting ready. Like the prequel hype was really, really high. They're doing those re-releases. Like everything was just kind of hitting. I had seen them, like my aunt, like my origin story, like my aunt lent me the VHS copies, I think, at the time.
Wow,
when I was younger, and made me wait like a week or 2 in between watching each one so I could let it sink in. And I ended up watching them just repeatedly.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
I don't
have the impulse control.
Well, none of us do in this, this streaming video world that we live in. Nobody has all we've been doing, April and I, lately is binging shows. We binge Ted Lasso, which I'm the last person on earth who held out to watch that show, because I had Extra and Mark over my ass for like the last 2 years to watch that show. And then
we really owe you Battlestar now.
Yeah. Or Lower Decks. You give me one episode of Lower Decks.
Lower Decks is happening.
Or Strange New Worlds, which they film in Toronto. That's a lot closer to you. So I'm just saying.
There you go.
But we're watching Shrinking right now, which is the Harrison Ford and Jason Segel one about we just started that. That's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, I'll back up, just talk about Apple Plus, about what Todd says about Apple Plus. They don't make a lot of content, but what they don't make anything bad. Their stuff is all pretty great. So anyway,
okay. No. Last question. If you guys could only choose one other Star Wars movie to see again in theaters, or to see in theaters for the first time, what would it be? Gareth?
Oh, I'd have to say, I mean, Revenge of the Sith. It's just an amazing way to end the prequel trilogy, isn't it? And it's really cool, I think, after watching the originals and you've seen all the other prequels, and you can kind of watch Anakin's Fall and the Rise of the Empire. And I feel like even though Order 66 is about to happen, you kind of still watch it, and a little bit of you thinks, oh, I wish I'm hoping this time round everything will be fine. They're going to go away and live on Naboo. It'll be all right. But yeah, I'd love to be able to go through that again, to watch it at the cinema. I think that would just be perfect.
Amazing, actually.
Yeah.
I have a great Revenge of the Sith story. I saw a midnight showing in May of 2005, just a few months before my middle son was born. So my son Jackson, who turns 18 this year, but at a little theater in the town I lived in at the time, St. Clair Shores, also in Metro Detroit, that is no longer their little one-screen theater. And I held on to my little torn in half ticket stub for years and years, had it in my wallet, but it was just like a little paper like raffle ticket. It was so basic. But yeah, midnight showing, that used to be a thing before they started showing big movies at I've seen them at 4:00 on a Thursday. It's just not a thing anymore.
Midnight early releases now.
Yeah, exactly.
We do have them here every so often. I make the effort to try. If it's a film I'm quite interested in, then I'll have a go at getting to it.
There's the Marvel midnight showings, man. We didn't miss one.
There's no way I would make it, even being awake up to that. I have to have a nap before I get there. But I'm going to super cheat the shit out of my way out of your question, because I already kind of hyped upon this. I'm going to slap together Rogue One and A New Hope into one film, and I would sit through that. Yeah, just when you see the Tantive 4 blast off into hyperspace, no credits. Then it just
straight in.
Straight into straight down into that tilt of seeing it again. So just a smash cut. It would never be done. But it would be amazing. It would be amazing to have a 4.5 hour Star Wars extravaganza. Rogue New Hope.
That's the answer, man. That is the answer. Holy crap, that would be amazing. I was gonna say A New Hope, but shit, I think that's the answer.
You need my smash cut, my Super Smash Bros. Star Wars cut. Boom!
Yeah. Wow, I love that answer. That's fantastic, man.
That's brilliant.
That's a really, really good one. I gotta just I want to just steal those and just make that edit myself and just watch it for fun. I guess I could just really quickly start it up on Disney Plus and whatever, but for some reason I just want to put that together now.
Just close your eyes. Yes.
I'm broken like that. Gareth, thank you so much for staying up super late. I'm not going to keep you up any longer.
Yes, please.
Okay.
This has been an absolute pleasure. Please once again tell people where they can find you on the internet and where they can follow you.
Okay, so my little corner of the internet, you can find me on TikTok, so it's at I am the Senate with a dot in between each word. On Instagram, I am the Senate official, and you can actually find me on Twitter as well. I didn't put the link in, but you can find me on Twitter at official Senate. So I am convinced I'm the world's worst Twitter user, but I mainly upload daily on TikTok, and that's a skit every day and a cosplay video. And then on Instagram, I tend to mostly post photos of cons or any places that I go in cosplay or anything I do in cosplay. But it's a good place to find out anything else that I'm doing. And if you want to endure my rants on Twitter, you can also look me up there.
That's funny because conversely, I'm a lukewarm Twitter user. I'm a terrible TikTok user, and an even worse Instagram. Well, you know what? I'd put Instagram somewhere in the middle because I'll take a picture of myself or my wife and I going for a walk or something, and it'll be on Facebook as well. But Facebook is all for old people, and I'm trying to pull away from it as much as I can.
I don't use Facebook very much.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyhow,
Charlie, where can people find you?
Oh my goodness. Well, you can find me, as I said, over on Twitter is kind of my main blast at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. Wouldn't be me if I wasn't plugging the USS Grand Petoskey, the chapter of the International Star Trek Fan Club that my wife and I run here in West Michigan, although I do head up Region 13, which is Michigan and Eastern Canada. But regardless, if you're a Trekker within the sound of my voice, want to meet other Trekkers in the place where you live, drop me a line from that website or across socials, and I can help kind of connect the dots.
Perfect. And you can follow me everywhere at _Canardian. I'm going to early apologize to all of my Star Wars friends and followers that at the end of this week, it's going to turn into a Tears of the Kingdom Legend of Zelda account for at least a little while. So get used to that, prepare for it. And then I'll switch back to lightsaber stuff when I get my new one. So follow me, Instagram, TikTok, and I've been really ignoring Twitter for the most part lately, but you can still follow me over there. That's again the _Canardian.
Awesome. Good deal.
Fantastic.
Well,
thanks, guys.
Friends, as always, I will say thank you for joining us. Sharing is caring, and keep on trucking.
May the force be with you. Rex, play us out. This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.